the big one, the fun one. So we've been laboring away on the hard stuff, shapes, values, and so on. And now it gets to be a little bit more fun. But they're not fun unless the shapes and values and all that other stuff is done well with it. So it's a building thing, and it builds to color after we've got our foundation with it. Now let's just kind of review what we've been doing. We've had just 2 days together, and because it's a whole week in between, it's kind of hard to hang on to all of this stuff. We've done a number of workshops recently where we've done two days a week or even 3 days a week, and it's more like a real workshop where you've got the memory and the feeling of what you did the day before. Well, let's just step back here for a second. The whole thing is about creating an interesting composition. And that composition is sort of a silent thing that's underneath the surface, that is just you having moved around things, placing them where you want them to go, but it's built on shape and value. You've got to have the shapes, decide where you want to place them to make it interesting, and then the value separates them out. It makes things come forward, makes them go back, and so on. Color then is added to give it the punch. What's going on here with my little guy here? Color gives it the punch, and then the final thing are those juicy little details. And this is the challenge, hanging on until the end to put in those little bits. So we start with a reference that we think is okay. It's got the bones that would make it worthwhile painting. I always look at it in black and white. Combining the two of them visually together, I decide on the shapes that are important that I want to have in the painting. And then I go and create a value plan. It doesn't have to be detailed. All this is a thinking process. It's making you think. Shapes, stuff coming forward, stuff going back, all that stuff, perspective, driving the eye somewhere. Then I come in and put in the primary values. So the shapes are just sort of banged in with the primary best guess first value, and then come inside those shapes with the secondary value. And I mean, this sounds nice and clean when you're describing it, but I have a hell of a job not getting inside these trees and, sort of tweaking around and adjusting them. And so, restraining yourself, it can be really, really hard at this point, but it's best if you can do that and get these big guys working so that something comes forward, something goes back, they're separated from one another based on value and color. And think about going from big to small, from general to specific. Hold those details to the very end, if at all possible. Stuart asked a question on Facebook this week. And it was a question that it kind of caught me off guard. And I thought, man, this should be clear. And if it's not, we as teachers are doing something wrong, or I'm doing something wrong. He's basically asking about value relationships and the fact that it is hard. It is hard. So if you're having trouble and it's a challenge doing it in the studio, what's it like doing it outside? And it's outside that really forces you. You have to, Stuart's right. You have to cope with all this stuff that you're looking at out there and try to condense it and turn it into something interesting. So Stuart, here is something close to home. This is Point Homes, the little boat ramp down there. Stuart lives back over here somewhere. This is out on Vancouver Island. I send pictures of me biking along the Pacific and tease the kids about that. But it starts just the same. My little pencil sketch, and then I get in with my acrylic markers, and then I start going in and layering it and so forth. But these shapes would have been banged in first. They would have been banged in first. But here's what I want you to see, Stuart, and everybody else. It's built on a value plan, shape and value, then coming inside here. And doing it outside is hardest because you have to make choices that you think are already given to you on a photograph. One of the best things that painting on location does is makes it hard. And if you can become competent with even at a basic level outside by organizing, by managing shapes and values, then you will learn to come inside the house or in the studio, and you can apply that approach to the photos. You are not stuck with the photos that you're given. This approach should be the same for the photos, identifying simple shapes, the values, and then coming and banging those things in from one another. But there's rarely a time where certainly I wouldn't be doing a value sketch when I'm working plein air. And it's not fancy. I mean, you can see the dark, there's the dark here, it's a little lighter back there, and so on and so on. It's a plan, and it's just about thinking. It's just about stopping, contemplating what you're looking at, having some sense of where you want to go. Well, not a big sense, because the end sort of accomplishes itself really with time. So I don't worry about the end. I worry about the start. And then now, more and more, I'm doing this. So it's the same thing. I'm working with my Samsung phone. I have a little magnet that goes on the back of that, and that sticks on my my plein air easel. And I start, and I just look at, and what is going on with my pen? The simple shapes. I just put in simple shapes, and then I do a value, and then so this comes in layers. So I put one layer is the simple shapes, then I'll have another layer, I'll do values, and third layer, I'll just put in swats of color. Bang, 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 bang. This takes minutes, but it's that thinking process, and then I can throw that plan onto a canvas and just go bang, 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 bang. Work here, emphasis here. This is so much easier. If you got to start making your corrections halfway through or at the end of your painting, it's a lot harder with it. And I mean, Stuart was asking about adjusting the values in these big shapes later on. You can adjust the small things, but it's hard to come back in to look at something like this and correct the value relationships of big shapes at the end. You can do it, but you're really, restructuring the whole painting. So you want to get those big things right up front. That was a great question, Stuart. I appreciate you asking that. And then I was taught early on to do a lot of copying of other artists' work. And there's merit in that. But here's the risk. So here's Emile Groupé, there's Casson, and Bob Gant. Three people who I know how they started their paintings. I've got Groupé's books. I've seen sketches and plans of Casson and how he started his work, and I've painted for a couple of weeks with Bob Gant. I know where he started with his work. Every one of them did this, and I won't go through it all again, but they had a very organized, simple approach to attacking a painting. If you were to copy this painting, what do? You start, all you got are the details. I mean, you got details, so you'll start banging in details. So you'll get into the habit of doing the last thing you should be doing first. And that is a real negative of copying other people's work. It works better on things like portraiture and that, but on landscape, if the person is very detail oriented, as Groupé was, and Casson and both Gant are in some of their paintings. But if you're copying it, you can't not start with all this little stuff. You will not know how they went back and developed to that point. So be very careful in how much effort you spend in copying, because you're just building up this image of detail necessary in what you're doing. For sure, come in and look at Gen's colors. Look at his brushwork. Look at the nice, wonderful shapes here. Look at the value back there, the power value against that. Look at all this stuff. Steal from it. Steal these abstracted trees, his angular brushwork, his colors, and so on. But don't think that this is how they painted. They built to this point, and you've got to do the same if you're going to grow. Don't focus on the end. Don't focus on the final painting. Focus on the beginning. Almost everybody can pull off a painting, a one-off painting, and your mother-in-law will buy it, and you think that you're off and running. And if she buys the 100th painting you do, well, that's even more important. But it's over the long run. It's a batting average of success that you really want, and that starts with a good start, basically. Not going to go through this. That's in your notes. You'll see that again. Just quickly here. Oh, there's some familiar faces. There's Joan, as a matter of fact. This is a workshop in Thornbury. Oh, Rosemary back there. a workshop in Thornbury we did a few years ago. But one of the questions I get asked a lot is they come to my workshops because they think I'm colorful. And then they want to have their work simplified as well. Back then, this is probably 4 or 5 years ago. Back then, I wouldn't have thought about this because I wasn't using this, but this is what I would recommend today with it. And this is a part of color, of learning to take risks in playing with color. Start the painting digitally if you can. If that interests you and you want to develop confidence in doing different things, then look at digital approach to creativity with it. And this I started slowly about 4 or 5 years ago. Now it's what I do on every painting I make. It starts digitally because I can ask questions, I can make choices, I can take Malign Lake here and just, what's going on with the pen? I can take Malign Lake. Oh man. Sorry, there's something going on here, driving me nuts. So go down to the second one. I can take Malign Lake and just translate it. I mean, this is a push of a button. This is one button push to just without intent, and it's a crapshoot. I have no idea what it's gonna give me, and then I can go in and massage and do all sorts of different things. But it lets me look at something and say, "Wow, I wouldn't have thought of that. I wouldn't have had the courage to try to do something crazy like that." So this digital approach with editing software can be really, really helpful to overcome fear of color and fear of trying to do risky, crazy things. And then drawing software, absolutely wonderful to just, create different shapes. Oh man. Oh, I know what it is. My battery's coming loose. I hate it when my battery comes loose. Okay, so this is just creating different shapes and then just banging in colors and playing, just playing. Yeah, it's cool as it goes back into the distance. It's lighter and grayer and cool as it goes back there. The greens are warming up here, so on and so on. But it's just play. It's imaginative stuff that just helps you build confidence. You look at this at the end. I mean, if I saw myself doing this 10 years ago, I would have thought, like, I'm done. But now this is what I want. I want invention. I want playfulness. And this was very helpful to me when I started doing this. And this digital approach, it's just the same as painting. I'll throw in a sketch. This is layer 1 on my Art Rage program, just a quick sketch. I'll put an underpainting in it, and I may sometimes have the underpainting first. So just adding that color. I'll bang in first I'll bang in the big shapes with the first level of value with it, and then come inside with the secondary values inside that, just playing. And you can do another layer with just black and white. You can do another layer with entirely different colors. You don't lose anything. They're all there. And they're all built on the foundation of your initial sketch with it. It's wonderful learning, really, and it's fun. The other thing are these little 12 by 12s. And I don't know if I talked about them in this workshop. I don't think so. But I do these little 12 by 12s. And I initially just didn't want to bother with these things. The local gallery encouraged me to do it. And I did a few for them. And then I said, this is not as bad as I thought. And now it's a huge part of my annual painting. I do almost 100 of these a year. I think I did 70 last year and 100 the year before. They allow me to just play. So I work with different color combinations. I work with different ideas. I maybe have taken, like say these shapes probably, and would have reinterpreted that maybe 15 times. Maybe I've made 20 built on that format. And I would have flipped it and the trees would have been over here. I would have had an entirely different color scheme. This one was done on black. The next one might be done on a red underpainting or a yellow underpainting. And so, I mean, these are no more than half an hour each. Rarely a half an hour even. because they're just bangings and the repetition, 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 except for the color and the invention. And this kind of stuff can be really, really helpful. This is now an important part of my year. It's an important part of my learning and experimenting and trying different colors. This color combination, I've never thought of sort of an orange and a purple before. I really like that. And it was just play. It was an accident. It wasn't done with any great intent. It's just play. And Noni, these are the little spots. The little spots. What the heck are they? What the heck are they? But they give it something. You know, the black canvas showing through. Just leave it alone. See what happens. What is that? I don't know. Black canvas, but it looks kind of neat. Little strokes, all these little strokes in similar values. Little thing to just say, talking, telling the story. Little stuff coming down here. Play, 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 play. Really, really important learning. Okay, let's move on.
Hey, Brian, can I ask a question?
That was the sermon. Yep.
Yeah. So those pictures you just showed us, are they from AC/DC? You make them there first, and then copy them? No,
these ones?
Yeah.
No, those are just paintings.
Okay, but do you go through AC/DC first?
No.
No. Okay.
No, because this is done out of my imagination.
Okay.
So that's a good question. So you could, I mean, at the start, I could do this with it, but I mean, these things are so fast. You use a good sized brush, and I just play with these things. I probably, for every 10 I do, there's probably 2 that I take these down and I stand them on the dining room table and drive my wife nuts. I look at them for a couple of days, and then maybe 2 out of 10 I'll take back up and tweak. Just the tree should be taller, this kind of stuff. But most of them are just shoot from the hip, playing, imaginative, color, fun stuff. I've learned so much from this, and this is an important part of them. But I've never not sold one. Like I've done almost 450 or something of these things that everyone has sold. People, the smaller you go, the more risk you can take with punch, with color, with something that grabs them. And these go on a wall. Some of you know the Loft Gallery here in town, and it's the same thing in Ottawa Gallery, same thing in the Canmore Gallery. They have these events, and they'll have a couple of hundred. The Loft Gallery had 800 of these things from different artists last year. And so if you want to sell them, then it's got to stand out. It's got to have visual impact. The design, all that is really important, but it's the color that grabs them. They can't get, you want them to not get past your color. So on the small thing like that, it's a bang. It's just abstraction, invention, playful stuff with it. Any questions on that little sermon thing? And we move on to some hard stuff. Okay.